On a chill October night, a gathering of school companions accumulated in their confined apartment. The air was thick with expectation and the fragrance of consumed popcorn. Outside, the breeze yelled through the trees, and the weak shine of the full moon cast ghostly shadows on the ground. It was the ideal setting for a terrifying story, and Sarah, the instigator of the gathering, knew precisely which one to tell. "Have you all consistently known about Cocktail?" Sarah asked, her voice scarcely a murmur. The others traded uncomfortable looks yet gestured. They had all heard the stories, yet none had at any point thought for even a second to attempt it. "Up to this point. I figure we ought to get it done," Sarah said, her eyes sparkling with fervor. "It's simply a senseless old legend, correct? What could possibly go wrong?" Mark, the distrustful one of the gathering, sneered. "It's simply a stupid notion. Nothing will occur." Emily, the hesitant one, shuddered and folded her arms over herself. "I don't have the foggiest idea, folks. What on the off chance that it's genuine?" "It's not genuine," Imprint demanded. "Come on, how about we get it done and get it over with?" The gathering hesitantly concurred, and they generally swarmed into the small restroom. The mirror was old and spotted with age, projecting contorted reflections back at them. Sarah lit a solitary light, putting it on the edge of the sink. The glimmering fire cast long, moving shadows on the walls. "Okay, everybody knows how this goes," Sarah said, her voice a piece unstable now that they were really getting it done. "We stand before the mirror, clasp hands, and say cocktail multiple times." They shaped a circle, their fingers entwined. The air in the washroom appeared to become colder, and the flame glinted as though trapped in a draft. Sarah took a full breath, her eyes locked on the mirror. "Cocktail. Cocktail. Ridiculous Mary." The room fell quiet. The companions gazed at their appearance, trusting that something will occur. Briefly, there was only their own relaxing. Then, at that point, the light flashed savagely and went out, diving the room into dimness. Emily let out a little shout, and Imprint bungled for his telephone to turn on the spotlight. The light emission sliced through the haziness, enlightening their pale appearances. The mirror was unfilled, simply their appearance gazing back at them. "Isn't it obvious?" "Nothing," Imprint said, however his voice faltered somewhat. However, at that point, Sarah saw something. Toward the side of the mirror, barely out of the light emission spotlight, was a weak, shadowy figure. It was by all accounts moving, gradually creeping nearer to the focal point of the mirror. Sarah's heart beat in her chest, and she contacted Get Imprint's arm. "Look," she murmured, highlighting the mirror. The others turned their look to where she was pointing. The shadow was becoming bigger, more characterized. It was a lady, her long hair tangled and trickling with what resembled blood. Her eyes were empty, void voids that appeared to suck the light from the room. Once more, Emily shouted, and the figure in the mirror snapped its head towards them, its mouth opening in a quiet shout. Yet again the restroom entryway closed with a stunning bang, and the companions were dove into murkiness. Alarm set in. They ripped at the entryway, attempting to get away, however it wouldn't move. The temperature decreased much further, and their breath turned out in noticeable puffs. The figure in the mirror was presently completely noticeable, its skeletal hand connecting towards them. "We need to leave," Imprint yelled, his voice breaking with dread. Sarah quickly looked for the flame, her fingers numb from the virus. She tracked down it and mishandled with a lighter, at long last figuring out how to touch off the wick. The warm gleam enlightened the washroom, yet the figure in the mirror remained, presently closer than any time in recent memory. "There's no chance to get out," the figure murmured, its voice a rough murmur. "You called me, and presently you have a place with me." The companions crouched together, their trepidation substantial. The figure in the mirror started to chuckle, a chilling, empty sound that reverberated in the little room. It arrived through the glass, its hand arising out of the mirror and getting a handle on Sarah's wrist. She shouted, attempting to pull away, yet the grasp was ironclad. The others attempted to help, however their hands went through the figure as though it were made of smoke. Sarah's eyes broadened in dread as she was gradually pulled towards the mirror. "No. Let me go," she cried, her voice breaking. Yet, the figure just chuckled more diligently, hauling her nearer to the glass. Mark and Emily clutched Sarah, attempting to keep her secured in reality, yet it was no utilization. The mirror appeared to beat with a dull energy, pulling her in with overwhelming power. "If it's not too much trouble, stop," Emily asked, distress streaming her face. The figure's unfilled eyes bore into Emily's spirit, and briefly, she felt a rush of gloom wash over her. The room appeared to turn, and she battled to keep her balance. "She's mine," the figure murmured, its hold fixing on Sarah's wrist. With a last, frantic exertion, Sarah was gotten through the mirror. The glass undulated like water, and afterward she was no more. The restroom entryway flew open, and the companions staggered out, wheezing for breath. Yet again they turned around to the mirror, yet it was only a conventional reflection. Sarah was gone, and in her place was a solitary, horrendous imprint on the glass. The companions remained in staggered quietness, their brains attempting to understand what had simply occurred. The room felt abusively calm, as though the very walls were pausing their breathing. "We need to find support," Imprint at last said, his voice scarcely over a murmur. They ran out of the quarters and down the lobby, their strides reverberating in the vacant passage. They burst into the occupant council's room, their words tumbling over one another in a berserk hurry. The occupant guide, a straightforward senior named Lisa, paid attention to their story with developing concern. "You did what?" she asked, her eyes wide with incredulity. "It was simply expected to be a game," Emily wailed. "We didn't think it was genuine." Lisa took a full breath, attempting to keep composed. "Okay, we want to call the ground security. Perhaps they can help." The companions gestured, thankful for somebody assuming responsibility. Lisa got the telephone and dialed the number, her fingers shaking. As she cleared up the circumstance for the security official, the others sat in a crouched bunch, their brains dashing. Ground security showed up in no time, their harsh countenances doing barely anything to facilitate the gathering's trepidation. They accompanied the companions back to the quarters, requesting that they show precisely where it worked out. The washroom looked ordinary, the mirror mirroring their restless countenances. "There's nothing here," one of the officials said, his tone distrustful. Be that as it may, she was not too far off. Imprint demanded, highlighting the mirror. "She was gotten through." The official shook his head. "It's late, and all of you seem as though you've had very much a panic. Perhaps you envisioned it." Emily's eyes loaded up with tears. "We didn't envision it. She's gone." The officials traded dicey looks, however consented to record a report. They guaranteed the companions that they would research further, however it was clear they didn't trust the story. The companions were left remaining in the corridor, feeling more powerless than any other time in recent memory. Days transformed into weeks, and there was no indication of Sarah. The police led an exhaustive pursuit, however she had apparently evaporated suddenly. Her vanishing was ultimately named a grievous mishap, yet her companions knew reality. Mark, Emily, and the others attempted to continue on with their own personal business, however the memory of that evening tormented them. They stayed away from mirrors, incapable to shake the inclination that something was watching them from the opposite side. The legend of Cocktail turned out to be something other than a frightening story. It was a terrible reality that had guaranteed their companion. One evening, months after the fact, Emily remained before her room incapable to rest. Her appearance gazed back at her, a consistent indication of that horrendous evening. She took a full breath, her hands shaking. "Sarah," she murmured, her voice scarcely perceptible. "Please accept my apologies." As she went to leave, she got a brief look at something in the mirror. A shadow, faint yet unquestionable. She froze, her heart beating in her chest. The shadow developed more clear, taking the state of a natural figure. "Sarah?" Emily murmured, tears gushing in her eyes. The figure in the mirror gestured gradually, its eyes loaded up with distress. Emily connected, her fingers brushing the virus glass. Briefly, she felt an association, a transient feeling of warmth. However, at that point, the figure started to blur, and Emily was left gazing at her own appearance again. "Farewell," she murmured, her voice breaking. She got some distance from the mirror, a solitary tear moving down her cheek. The legend of Well Drink had taken her companion, yet it had likewise made an imprint on her spirit. She realized she could always remember that evening, nor the example it had educated her. A few legends are something beyond stories. Some are admonitions, murmured through the ages, sitting tight for the individuals who try to tune in. Furthermore, some, similar to the legend of Well Drink, are best let be.